Have you ever felt like something inside you starts moving for no clear reason? Almost as if a deep, quiet voice were telling you that life holds more than what you've experienced so far. It's not just a random thought or a fleeting emotion. It's a calling, a mysterious and ancient calling that comes from within, awakening at the right time. This isn't random. It's a sign that you're beginning one of the most sacred and life-changing journeys a person can take. Spiritual awakening. This isn't just a superficial understanding or a shift in beliefs, but a process that shakes the very core of your identity, lifting you out of illusions and inviting you to see reality in a whole new way. Although every awakening is unique, like an imprint of energy that cannot be repeated, there are certain stages that most seekers will go through. These stages are like thresholds that mark the transition from the old version of yourself to one that is more authentic, free, and connected to the divine. In this video, we will explore the 5 stages of spiritual awakening together. This is not meant to be a strict guide, but rather a living tool to help you understand where you are on your journey and where you're headed. From the initial chaos that shakes your world to the deep inner peace of a soul that's been rooted, each stage carries its own purpose, power, and mystery. This won't be just an information dump. It will be a deep dive into the symbolic and energetic process of transformation that all conscious beings experience. I invite you to listen with an open heart, to feel what resonates with you, and most importantly, to remember that you are not alone. If you're watching this, it's likely that your soul has already started to awaken, and this could be one of the clearest signs that your transformation is already underway. Spiritual awakening is not something modern or just a passing trend in personal growth. It's an ancient process that's been recorded in sacred texts, kept safe in forgotten temples, and passed down orally in mystical schools for generations. What we now call the stages of awakening were once known as the soul's initiation stages. In ancient Egypt, the priests of the temples of Isis and Osiris guided initiates through symbolic processes of death and spiritual rebirth. These were not dramatic rituals, but real tests for the soul. The initiate had to face inner chaos and ignorance to finally find the light of wisdom and unity with the whole. This path was represented by 12 portals of transformation, each one corresponding to a higher level of consciousness. In Hinduism, awakening is often understood as the process of kundalini, the serpent-like energy that rests at the base of the spine. As this energy rises through the chakras, it awakens spiritual perception and expands consciousness, leading to enlightenment or samadhi. This energy ascent involves its own stages, challenges, and revelations. Siddhartha Gautama, before becoming the Buddha, went through multiple inner phases, renouncing doubting, battling with the ego, reaching enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, and ultimately dedicating his life to selfless service. His followers understood that every true spiritual awakening involves rupture, clarity, and transformation. In the mystical texts of Gnostic Christianity, there is talk of the knowledge of the heart and the ladder of the soul. Awakening isn't just about adopting new beliefs or converting. It's a conscious journey toward the inner heavens, the very kingdom of God that Jesus referred to when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." In the Gospel of Thomas, Christ is portrayed not as an external savior, but as an internal divine spark that must be ignited. Neoplatonists, like Plotinus, taught that the soul descends into the physical world to learn, forget, and then remember its divine nature through a process they called anamnesis, or sacred recollection. This process, step by step, is the soul's return to its original source. Even among indigenous cultures, the concept of awakening has been present in many shamanic traditions. Awakening often starts with a call from the spirit, or a crisis, or illness that marks the beginning of transformation. Those who answer this call must face symbolic trials, fasting visions, isolation, and the death of the ego until they are reborn as healers, guides, or visionaries. These traditions, separated by time and place, all share a profound insight. Spiritual awakening is not a single event, it is a journey. It's not a sudden moment of illumination, but a deep transformation, sometimes painful, but always sacred. This journey is marked by stages, cycles, and transitions that lead us from darkness to light, from confusion to clarity, and from the limited self to the infinite being. Today, in this hyper-connected world that still craves spiritual fulfillment, souls continue to awaken. While we no longer bow before ancient statues or meditate in caves, the process remains unchanged. The 5 stages of awakening we'll explore next are rooted in ancient wisdom passed down through millennia. They are like doors to your true self, echoes of knowledge that your soul already understands and is now remembering. Spiritual awakening, at its core, is not about finding something new, but about returning to the eternal. It's the process where the soul, which has been asleep in the illusion of the material world, begins to reconnect with its divine origins. And while each path is unique, there are universal stages that are not just abstract ideas, but real inner doors that open one after another in harmony with our growth. In this first part, we'll look at the first 3 stages of spiritual awakening, the ones that act like a crucible where the soul begins its transformation. Some of these stages are painful, others are enlightening, but all of them are necessary. First, we have the dark night of the soul. This stage is often something we don't want, but it's absolutely necessary. It's the breaking point, the moment when the old self starts to fall apart. Everything you thought was your identity, your goals, your beliefs, your relationships, starts to lose its meaning. You might feel empty, lost, and disconnected from everything that once gave you comfort. Christian mystics, like San Juan de la Cruz, describe this phase as the dark night of the soul, an experience of desolation that paradoxically prepares the soul for light. In this phase, the soul goes through deep self-reflection. While the ego tries to hold on, something deeper is waking up inside. Common signs of this stage include an existential crisis, spiritual anxiety, feelings of emptiness, loss of purpose, and emotional isolation. But this chaos isn't punishment. It's a purifying fire, a moment when the caterpillar begins to dissolve, not knowing it's meant to fly. After the initial breakdown, something new begins to grow. At first, it's like a weak spark, but it's persistent. This is the call, a subtle but strong sense that there's something more, something beyond the everyday world. You start questioning everything. Who am I really? Why am I here? What does it all mean? You find yourself drawn to spiritual ideas, ancient philosophies, and mysterious symbols. There's an almost magnetic pull towards self-awareness. This stage mirrors the first awakening in many spiritual traditions. It's when the soul starts to remember its true nature. You may not yet have full clarity, but you feel a thirst for truth, a sense that a deeper reality is waiting to be discovered. You read books you once ignored, and you feel drawn to practices like meditation, yoga, astrology, or even shamanism, not as trends, but as tools to wake up something within you. Common signs include constant synchronicities, vivid symbolic dreams, and a desire to withdraw from shallow environments, and a growing sense of connection with something invisible. Third, we experience the expansion of consciousness. In this stage, what was once just an intuitive feeling begins to turn into direct experiences. You start to see reality in a new way. What once seemed rigid becomes fluid, and what appeared to be separate reveals itself as interconnected. Your consciousness expands, and you realize that you are more than just a body or a personal story. You are a part of something much bigger. The individual self starts to dissolve into the collective we. You may experience moments of deep peace and unity with everything, sometimes brief but unforgettable. Duality begins to fade, and judgment turns into compassion, guilt into acceptance, and fear into presence. In many traditions, this stage is considered the birth of the higher self, the moment when the soul takes charge and begins guiding you from a higher perspective. Common signs include heightened empathy, energetic shifts, a sense of connection with nature, mystical or transcendent experiences, and moments of insight that can't be explained logically. These 3 stages, the fall, the call, and the expansion, form the first major cycle of awakening. They are like the first 3 steps a seeker takes in crossing the threshold of their inner temple. These stages aren't easy, but they are sacred, as each one removes a veil, reveals a truth, and brings you closer to who you truly are. In the next section, we will explore the final two stages of the awakening process, those where you not only awaken, but also start living from this new consciousness. Until now, the soul has crossed thresholds of pain, longing, and expansion. It has started to remember who it truly is and has glimpsed the reality beyond the illusion. But the journey of spiritual awakening doesn't end with a fleeting experience of unity. What comes next is even more sacred and challenging. Embodying what you've remembered, becoming the light and living fully awake. Fourth, integration, turning your awakening into daily life. After profound insights and experiences, it's time to bring everything you've learned into your everyday life. This stage is often less dramatic, but even more important than the earlier ones. You've had visions, deep realizations, or maybe mystical experiences. But now you need to ground all of that wisdom. Spiritual integration is about aligning your newfound understanding with your daily life. This is where many people struggle. They want to stay in the blissful state, but true spirituality shows up in the simple moments, in how you handle chaos, interact with others, and act when no one is watching. You begin to cleanse your life, letting go of things that no longer align with who you are. Habits, relationships, jobs, environments, not out of judgment, but through discernment. It's not about painful sacrifice. It's about conscious refinement. You're shaping your reality from the new awareness you've gained. And with that comes a deep need for authenticity. You no longer want to wear a mask. You want to live in total harmony where your thoughts, feelings, and actions all match up. At this point, spirituality becomes more than just a concept. It's a way of living. Signs of this stage include searching for inner balance, making major lifestyle changes, having more aligned relationships, feeling a need for service or purpose, and experiencing moments of inner silence. This stage is long and cyclical, like a spiral that deepens each time you go around. It never really ends because there's always more to integrate. But every layer you align with makes you feel lighter, freer, and truer to yourself. Fifth, conscious mastery, being of service to all. The final stage of awakening isn't about retreat, isolation, or achieving perfection. It's about being fully present in the world, with your feet on the ground and your soul connected to something higher. It's about becoming a living bridge between different dimensions. At this point, you're no longer searching, not because you know everything, but because you've already discovered within yourself the source that holds everything. You've moved from being a seeker to being someone who carries light. This mastery isn't about arrogance or ego. It's about active humility. You understand that everything continues to evolve, but you no longer resist it. You flow, you serve, you radiate. You are a guide without forcing your ideas onto others, a teacher without needing students. You're like a beacon that doesn't need to convince anyone, but simply shines and transforms things through your presence. At this stage, your energy starts to influence others naturally, and you attract those who are ready for their own transformation. Your words silences, and actions become like medicine, not because you've prepared them, but because you're a channel for something much greater. This is the stage of the Bodhisattva in Buddhism, the realized person in Vanta, and the embodied Christ in Gnosis. It's not about being separated from the world, but being fully present in it, walking among others. Common signs of this stage include profound inner peace, detachment without coldness. However, like all stages, this isn't a final destination. It's not the top of the mountain, but the start of a new cycle. A true master remains a student of mystery, continuously refining their energy, serving in silence, and always remembering that the path doesn't have an end point, only deeper layers. And with these 5 stages, the soul awakens, is purified, grows, aligns, and ultimately becomes who it truly is. There's no going back, no more masks, only the presence of a being living from the highest truth. Understanding these stages of spiritual awakening is a powerful insight. But that insight only becomes wisdom when we apply it. Enlightenment doesn't happen in a hidden temple or atop a high mountain. It happens in the everyday, in traffic, in difficult conversations, in the silence of dawn, and in the decisions we make when no one is watching. In this process, you'll learn how to recognize which stage you're in and how to consciously integrate each one into your life. Because beyond the mystical awakening is a deeply human journey. First, if you're in the dark night of the soul, understand that this is a radical purification. Don't fight against the darkness. Observe it, listen to it. Ask it what it has come to show you that's most important. The key is to allow yourself to feel without judgment. Write down what you experience. Don't isolate yourself completely, but choose with love whom you share this process with. Practice detachment, not from rejection, but from understanding. Let go of what no longer resonates with you. Sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself. Remember, you're not falling. You're being replanted. Keep a shadow journal. Write down what hurts, what confuses you, and what you intuitively feel is happening. Second, if you're feeling the inner call, now is the time to open yourself up to mystery without needing all the answers. Read, explore, and dive into different traditions. But more importantly, start listening to your inner wisdom. This is your true guide. Strengthen your connection with nature. Pay attention to your body and allow yourself to experience things without rigid expectations. Try practices like meditation, visualization, conscious walks, or prayer. Your soul will communicate in the way you're ready to hear. A helpful practice is to create an altar for awakening. You don't need expensive items, just symbols that represent your intention to reconnect with the sacred. Third, you're in the expansion of consciousness. You're starting to feel like you're part of something much greater. Your emotions become more subtle, and your thoughts expand. It's a moment of tuning in with the unseen world. The key during this stage is not to rush. Your mind will try to make sense of what you're going through, but the soul speaks quietly. Pay attention to your words, actions, and decisions, not because you need to be perfect, but because now you understand that everything has its own energy. Choose from a place of presence. Honor your energy and practice conscious silence. Set aside 10 minutes a day to simply sit in silence without expectations and just be present. The soul strengthens through simplicity. Fourth, if you're integrating everything you've learned, true transformation begins. You no longer need to escape to nature to feel spiritual. You can maintain a high vibration even in a busy city. However, you might feel tempted to go back to old habits, people, places, or situations trying to pull you back into your former self. Don't fight them. Be grateful for the lessons and choose a new path. This is a time to establish new routines, diet, rest, relationships, and habits, not as obligations, but as acts of love toward your reborn self. Create a sacred routine, whether it's a mindful morning or evening ritual where you meditate, express gratitude, cleanse your energy, and affirm your path. Fifth, if you're in the stage of conscious mastery, you've stopped searching and started living from your truth. You're not here to impress others, you're here to shine. The ego continues to dissolve, and each day becomes an act of surrender. However, this stage requires humility. A true master remains a student, always learning, falling and refining their soul. The work never ends, it only deepens. Seek to serve without losing yourself, to guide without becoming dependent, and to help without absorbing. This is the delicate balance of living with your feet on the ground and your soul in the sky. Practice silent service. Do something for someone every day without expecting recognition. True power grows in the anonymity of the soul. So, how can you tell which stage you're in? The answer lies within your body, your emotions, and your dreams. No stage is better than another, and there's no linear path. Sometimes you may be in multiple stages at once, or return to an earlier stage to heal something unresolved. What's important is to recognize where you are, honor it, and move forward with honesty. This is not a journey outward, but a deep dive into the temple of your soul. Now that you've moved through the 5 stages of spiritual awakening, you might understand a profound truth. There is no final destination, only constant growth. Awakening isn't a goal. It's a way of living, a sacred choice to walk with your soul's eyes open, even when the world seems asleep. This journey isn't linear. It's not about climbing a ladder toward perfection, but about moving in concentric circles toward the core of your being again and again, with more truth, depth, and compassion. Maybe today you're in the dark night of the soul, and everything feels like it's falling apart. Or perhaps you've just heard the call and don't know where to start. Or maybe you're integrating years of inner work without needing labels or approval. It doesn't matter where you are. What matters is that you're walking toward your true self. Awakening is not a one-time event. It's a daily decision. Every morning ask yourself, where do I want to live today? From fear or from love? From old patterns or from my essence? Every time you choose your soul, even in small ways, you're not just evolving yourself. You're helping humanity evolve. Because when one person awakens, the light spreads to all. This video isn't about giving you all the answers. It's to remind you that you already carry the answers. Each stage you experience is part of a divine plan designed by your higher consciousness to help you remember who you truly are. So when you doubt, fall, or forget, come back to this map, not as a rigid guide, but as a mirror reflecting your highest self. And remember, no awakening is too small, no shadow too great. Everything you experience, if approached with presence, brings you closer to the truth. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to continue exploring esoteric wisdom and the mysteries of the soul. Like this video if something within you has awakened, and share it with those who are ready to remember who they are, because this awakening is not done alone. It happens in community and connection in love. And you traveler of the spirit, which stage are you in? Hey.